Have you ever had one of those days where you sat at your desk for 8 hours, accomplished absolutely nothing of substance, yet you feel as though you've just manually tilled a 3-hectare farm in the French countryside? You haven't checked off your to-do list, you haven't sent those crucial emails, you haven't even finished that book on your nightstand that has been stuck on page 42 since last October. Yet, as you lie on the sofa at 9 p.m., your brain feels like a smartphone that's been left in the sun, burning hot, glitchy, and flashing a 1% battery warning. Welcome to the mental leak. In our previous conversations, we talked about the graveyard of hobbies and the struggle of the scanner brain, those of us who want to do everything at once. We've looked at the neuroscience of grit and why we quit. But today, we need to talk about the silent killer of focus, the reason why your curiosity, which should be your greatest fuel, is currently acting like a hole in your fuel tank. As a mind decoder, I'm here to tell you that you aren't lazy, you aren't undisciplined. You were simply a victim of a biological glitch discovered in a Berlin cafe nearly 100 years ago. It's called the Zeigarnik Effect, and if you're an introvert or a multitasker, it is likely the primary reason you feel chronically overwhelmed. The story begins in the 1920s with a Russian psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik. She was sitting in a bustling Berlin restaurant watching the waiters. She noticed something bizarre. The waiters had incredible, almost Sherlock Holmes-level memories for complex, unpaid orders. They knew exactly who ordered the Wiener Schnitzel, who wanted extra lemon, and who was still waiting for their second glass of Riesling. However, the literal millisecond the bill was paid and the transaction was settled, those same waiters couldn't remember a single detail of the order. The information hadn't just faded, it had been purged. Zeigarnik went back to her lab and discovered a fundamental law of human hardware. The brain is biologically programmed to remember incomplete tasks better than completed ones. To your brain, an unfinished task is an open loop, and your brain hates open loops. It views them as a threat to its survival. It refuses to let go. It treats that unreturned email or that half-painted hallway like a predator stalking you in the grass. It keeps the app running in the background, constantly refreshing, waiting for a resolution that never comes. Now, let's look at the neuroscience of why this is so expensive. Your brain has a very limited amount of high-speed RAM, which we call working memory. This is the mental workbench where you process complex thoughts, solve problems, and engage in deep work. But working memory is not like your long-term memory, which is more like a vast, dusty archive. Working memory is tiny. It can only hold about 4 to 7 items at a time. When you leave a task unfinished, that scanner project you started but haven't touched, or the quick WhatsApp message you read but didn't reply to, your brain moves that task into the working memory. It stays there, vibrating with cognitive tension. Think of your brain as a high-end smartphone. You think you're just sitting there, relaxing with a coffee, but in the background, your working memory is running 50 different apps. Where's that file I saved? Refresh. I need to call my mother. Refresh. Did I ever finish that online course on Italian ceramics? Refresh. This constant background activity causes what we call mental fragmentation. Because a portion of your brain is still stuck in the past, trying to solve an unpaid bill from a restaurant you visited 3 weeks ago, you have no RAM left for the present. But it gets worse. Every time your brain pings you with a reminder, that intrusive thought at 2 a.m. saying, "You forgot to cancel that gym membership," it causes a tiny, sharp spike in cortisol, your primary stress hormone. You are effectively living in a state of low-level, chronic fight or flight. You feel tired because you are working. Your brain is running a marathon in the background while you're trying to enjoy a siesta. This leak is draining your cognitive ease and replacing it with a sense of vague, unplaceable anxiety. For the Europeans among us, we often value our quality of life and our leisure time, but you cannot truly enjoy a sunset in Ibiza or a quiet morning in a Parisian park if your brain is still back in the office, frantically trying to balance a ledger of unfinished business. So how do we close these loops? How do we stop the leak without having to actually finish everything on our plates? Because, let's be honest, if you're a scanner, you're never going to finish everything. The secret isn't more discipline. The secret is psychological closure. If the Zeigarnik Effect is the biological glitch that drains your battery, I have some good news for you. Your brain is actually quite easy to fool. You see, your prefrontal cortex, that high-maintenance CEO we talked about, is surprisingly gullible. It doesn't actually require you to finish the 5-year plan for your startup or finally assemble that flat-pack wardrobe from IKEA to stop the cognitive tension. It simply requires a plan. In 2011, 2 researchers at Florida State University, E.J. Masicampo and Roy Baumeister, took Bluma Zeigarnik's work and gave it a modern, minimalist upgrade. They discovered that the intrusive thoughts of the Zeigarnik Effect, those annoying 2 a.m. pings, weren't the brain trying to do the task. They were the brain trying to remind you to make a plan. They found that once participants made a specific plan to finish a task later, their performance on other tasks improved dramatically. Their mental leak stopped. Their RAM was cleared. The brain doesn't have a delete button for unfinished tasks, but it does have a very effective pause button. When you create a trusted plan, you aren't just being organized, you are providing your brain with psychological closure. You were telling that grumpy German customs officer in your head, "Look, I have the paperwork right here. I'm going to deal with this on Tuesday at 10 a.m. The officer looks at the paperwork, stamps it, and lets you through. The loop is closed, even though the work isn't done. So how do we model this in our messy scanner lives? How do we build a system that allows us to have 1,000 interests without the 1,000 cortisol spikes? We use what I call the zero residue system. Step 1. The tactical brain dump. The first rule of a mind decoder is this: your brain is for having ideas, not for holding them. Every time a new obsession or a must-do task pops into your head, you must externalize it immediately. I don't care if you use a high-end digital board or a napkin from a Belgian bistro. The physical act of moving information from your RAM to a structured system triggers a neurological off switch. When you write it down, your brain experiences a shift in responsibility. It moves from the high-energy working memory to an external second brain. This is the brain dump strategy. By writing it down, you are essentially telling your biology, "I don't need to refresh this app anymore. The data is saved on the hard drive." Step 2. The Trusted Plan Protocol. Writing it down is only half the battle. If your brain doesn't trust your list, if you have a history of writing things down and then ignoring them, the Zeigarnik Effect will stay active. Your brain is like a cynical Italian grandmother. It needs to know you're actually going to eat the pasta. To cheat the effect, you must assign a next action and a when. Instead of writing "learn Swedish," which is a massive, terrifying open loop, you write "download language app on Thursday at 6 p.m. The moment you attach a time and a specific, tiny action to a task, the cognitive tension dissolves. You have provided a resolution. You have settled the bill at the Berlin Cafe. Step 3. Minimalist loop management. For the multitaskers among us, our problem is usually project overload. We have 7 half-finished paintings, 3 business plans, and a garden we started digging in May. You need to perform a loop audit every Sunday. Look at your open loops. If a project is no longer serving you, you must kill the loop deliberately. You don't just stop doing it. That leaves it leaking energy in the background. You must say out loud or in writing, "I am not doing this project for the next 6 months." This is deliberate deferral. By officially pausing the project, you give your brain permission to purge it from the working memory. You reclaim that mental energy for the things that actually matter. So, let's put this all together. You aren't tired because you're doing too much. You are tired because you're leaving too much open. Your brain doesn't have a delete button for your unfinished tasks. It only has a pause button that currently has 50 fingers pressing it at once. Stop letting your to-do list leak your life force. Stop being a waiter who can't forget the orders from 3 tables ago. Reclaim your cognitive ease. Use the brain dump. Create a trusted plan. Close the loops that no longer serve you. When you do this, you will find that the exhaustion begins to lift. You'll find that you can sit in a quiet cafe in Prague or a balcony in Santorini and actually be there because your brain isn't busy refreshing a must-do list from last Tuesday. The hook for your journey. Your creative potential isn't limited by your talent, it's limited by your RAM. When you close the loops, you don't just get more done, you get your life back. I've created a mental loop audit worksheet, a simple minimalist framework to help you identify your leaks and close them in under 10 minutes. You can download it for free at the link in the description. Stop the leak. Reclaim the energy. Decode your mind. I'm the Mind Decoder, and I'll see you in the next one.